is Deputy Martin Kenny, who is sharing with Deputy Pat Buck.
Thank you, Vasquez. First of all, I want to thank Pearse Doherty for bringing this forward. It's very clear as to where and how this has most impact in our society. And I was just thinking about it earlier on here. The main people that you'll find will be dealing with these moneylenders are actually women, because they're the ones who are sorting out the household budget. And oftentimes it's around the household budget that a lot of this is happening. And it's to borrow for things like a new washing machine when it breaks down, or for something that goes wrong in the car breaks down, or something else happens, or there's a child in college and they need to get a deposit for a house. All of those sort of things are where the moneylender steps in. And I was just thinking about it. It's interesting because 100 years ago we were commemorating, suffrage and women getting their rights, and economic independence for women is one of the things that certainly Markovich and all of those people at that time wanted to establish. And that's what's missing out of all of this. And really, when you think about it, what we're talking about here is a debt trap, but really it's a poverty trap. And it's people who are in poverty that end up in these situations. And they may not even think they're in poverty. It's people who have decent jobs. But because of the cost of living in our society, and we had a motion earlier on this evening about the high cost of rents and evictions, and all of these things are interconnected. And it's interconnected that we have so many people in precarious employment who have work but have such low income. And all of that is having a cost on our society, because there is a cost to poverty. There's an interest on poverty. There's almost like a compounding of poverty. And that's what happens in these situations. And, if you have a family that are short of money and they can't afford, for instance, to perhaps send their child for dental hygiene, the next thing is there's a problem with their teeth and they have to go to a hygienist, and then they have to go from that, they have to go to an orthodontist, and then they have costs around that. Where are they going to get the money? And many of these people also, you'll find, are people who, are just one crisis away from the whole lot going up in smoke. And they're under huge pressure, and huge mental health pressures as well. And then they know that in that little community they live, in the housing estate they live, that every Thursday evening there's somebody going around door to door collecting money and offering a loan. And it's an easy opt-out. And they take it. And then they come back again 6 months later and they offer them a loan for something else. And they get into this trap, and in they go, and they just cannot get out of it. And they become smothered by it. You also, and I've come across this in a number of situations, people who are in abusive relationships, again women, where there's a husband drinking, where they can't get money, where a crisis comes up. And again, these people absolutely, feed on that. They target that. They can almost smell it, and they go for it. And it's absolute greed, Minister. And to think that, there's some excuse for to cancel this and kick it down the road a little while. I think, I absolutely concur with you that you're genuine about that. But to say to leave it for a year, if it was your mother or your sister that was in this situation, would you leave it for a year? I think not. I think that's what we need to realise here. These are the people of this state, in this society, that 100 years ago women went out and said that we want to have economic independence, we want a better future for our daughters and our granddaughters. And here's their granddaughters today, and they're in this situation, and the government is saying, oh, well, we'll have to leave it for a little while. I think it has been left long enough, Minister. The essence of this is that poverty has become a policy. And if poverty is the policy, then that policy is driving these people who make their money on poverty. That's what's at the core of all of this. And really, the compounding of poverty and the compounding of interest and the compounding of debt on a sector of society that's at the bottom and that's kept at the bottom has to change. And while we're here tonight and we're dealing with the specific issue of the interest rates and how these people are doing this, it's connected to all the rest of it. And there is a charge, if you like, against your government because we're dealing with this issue. We shouldn't be dealing with this issue because they should have no market for the product they sell. That's the reality. If we had a society that was functioning properly, there should be no market for this. The credit unions, of course, is part of the answer, and we know that. But really, the problem here is the problem of poverty. And while we know we will always have a certain level of that, unfortunately, we have far, far too much of it. And Minister, the rest of the people that sit around the cabinet table who deal with issues of income disparities, who deal with issues of the housing crisis, who deal with the issues of the hospital crisis and the healthcare crisis, and all of those things feed into all of this for the people who are struggling the most. So it's all a reflection of all of that. So finally, and I want to let my colleague in, the issue here is greater than just the issue that we're dealing with tonight. But the issue that we deal with tonight really has to be brought into focus. We cannot continue to kick this down the road. We cannot continue to avoid it. Reports and reports and reports will come, and those reports will come while it goes through committee stage, while it's been dealt with properly. So, Minister, I would appeal to you. It's clear that it's going to pass. Fianna Fáil is saying they're going to support the bill. We're supporting the bill, and I expect the vast majority of the House will support it. And I think, for the sake of the people out there who are suffering as a consequence of this, it is only the right thing for yourselves to do to withdraw the amendment and support the bill.
Deputy Buckley.